Hey everyone, and welcome to another Risky Business Soapbox episode. My name is Patrick Gray. For those of you who don't know, these Soapbox editions of the show where we talk to a sponsor about some big topic, and today that topic is AI, these Soapbox editions are wholly sponsored, and that means everyone you hear in one of these shows paid to be here. And today we're speaking with Josh Kamju, who is one of the founders of an email security company named Sublime Security, and we're going to talk all about AI. What's hype, what's not, why every single day, Josh, I get an announcement land in my inbox saying, hey, guess what? We've now got agentic AI into our product.
You're not interested in agentic hot dog or not?
Yeah, exactly. It's like hot dog, not hot dog. Was literally talking about that the other day with a friend. That's a Silicon Valley reference for those who might be confused. But like, it just seems like every single vendor right now, they're doing some sort of agentic AI, LLM-based thing. You look at a lot of it and you're like, okay, you've done this engineering work for the press release. Like this isn't a real thing. But I have to say, that's the minority. If I look at what most people are doing with large language models, it actually seems pretty sensible. So before we talk about what you're doing, what's your general take on our industry's approach to using this stuff? Because I got to say, most of the time I'm looking at what people are doing and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's useful.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of use cases. The way I think about this is there are problems that we have as an industry, or if you are like a security analyst or a security engineer or a detection engineer, there's problems that you face every single day as an organization. And there are problems that AI agents, LLMs are genuinely good at augmenting your workflows or automating a lot of that work. And there are some use cases that it doesn't make as much sense. But for the most part, I think it's a very good thing for the industry.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we were talking about before we got recording, just in a little sort of pre-briefing chat, was that one thing that LLMs have done mercifully is put a bullet into the head of the idea that people need to use scripting languages, right? Like the idea of someone introducing a new SIEM product in 2025, 2026 and saying, yeah, it's really awesome. You just got to learn this query language. Everyone's just going to tell them to go shoot themselves in a ditch, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out LLMs are very good at developing, generating detections, whether it's, I mean, you've seen, I'm sure, like Claude Code if you're doing like Python or Go. And so if you give an LLM enough context and documentation and tooling and knowledge on if it's some sort of scripting language or a DSL or whatever it might be, it can be extremely good at doing that work.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing, right? Which is that the scripting language will still exist. It's just the user won't have to have anything to do with it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of capability, like raw horsepower behind some of these toolings. And I think enabling, it's basically like all the good without any of the sort of like, learning curves that you might have to take on otherwise. And that's just like one sliver of the use cases. Like there's the generation, these are more kind of like GPT-esque or LLMs, but then you get into really more agentic workflows where we're talking about alert triage and like post-processing and analysis. And there's like this whole kind of ecosystem of use cases that may make sense or don't make sense to apply to.
Yeah, so let's get into what you're doing with all of this stuff, because for those who are not familiar, Sublime Security is, it's an email security firm, much in the same way. It's just a modern take on the proof points of the world. On what are the other ones? I mean, you've got what's that one? I always forget what they're called. Mimecast. They're still a thing, right?
I mean, there's 150, maybe more.
Yeah, but there's like a handful of ones that just like are really big. So you'd say that would be Proofpoint. I think Abnormal is one of the sort of newer ones that's quite popular. So very much in that vein, right? Which is filter out business email compromise, filter out malware, filter out phishing and whatnot. I guess one of the things that makes Sublime different is every installation is different. Basically you use machine learning language so that your product adapts to every environment. It's efficient. It allows people also to do detection engineering across their email infra, which a lot of these services don't, right? Like stuff will be slipping through and you send them an email and say, hey, would you mind catching messages like this? And maybe someone gets to it in a couple of weeks. With Sublime, you can kind of crack the hood. So it's very much like an email security platform where a security team can go mess with it. So I can already tell that there's going to be opportunities to do like stuff with agents, with AI agents in that. Seems a pretty wide open space though, right? So why don't you tell me where you actually chose to focus and what you did there?
Yeah, well, maybe a couple words on like why it's even important to even like solve these problems. Like, I mean, I'm sure the audience is probably tracking all this stuff, but what we're seeing in the threat landscape in the email space, I mean, we're seeing this in not just in email space, but we're seeing adversary adoption of generative AI tooling to make their attacks more efficient. Like there's all of these really rad use cases that we can use on the defensive side. Obviously, any good thing an adversary is going to see if they can leverage to make their operations more efficient. So, Google Threat Intelligence Group put out this report on because they have vantage point of Gemini. So they can see adversaries using and abusing Gemini to conduct targeted spear phishing operations and, iterate on malware and do recon and things like that. So we're seeing more and more sophisticated attacks. We're seeing more rapid adaptation. We're seeing more tailored attacks. So it's basically like spear phishing, which previously was like super manual and time intensive and low volume. And now it's like mass. It's happening everywhere. It's automated. And so being able to like adapt to the threat landscape is super important. It's one of like the key things as we see the threat landscape evolve more and more rapidly. And so the way that we're applying these capabilities on top of our platform, because you mentioned like the way that we are designed, we're architecturally different than every other email security solution. So we have a core detection engine that is actually like a purpose-built domain-specific language. And so that can describe complex attacker behavior. And like you mentioned, it's customized and tailored, and it learns on a per organization basis over time. And because it's a language that computers can speak, it's a ripe use case for AI agents effectively to autonomously or even semi-autonomously with human review improve efficacy over time. So you see a new technique. Well, the traditional approach to this has been you file a ticket and you wait. And like maybe at some point in the future, weeks, months, some time passes, and maybe there is a hand wavy like, yeah, we close this. Well, if you can have an agent speak this language, and this is like one of the really, really cool things that we've built and we're rolling out to our customers as we speak, is our autonomous detection engineer, or ADE. And it can basically just like monitor our customer environments and autonomously like improve the efficacy and respond to changes in the threat landscape.
Well, how does it do that? Because you mentioned earlier, right? Oh, well, some of it's autonomous and some of it requires human review.
Yeah.
And this is where the rubber meets the road when we're talking about agentic stuff, right? Is because there are some things that like LLM-driven agents can do where you can be completely hands-off. You don't have to touch them. It's fine, right?
Yeah.
But when it starts getting into more subtle, nuanced, context-dependent stuff, everyone, especially around like creating detections and things like that, everyone tells me the same thing, which is it gets you 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
So at what point, where do you draw the line between what features you release? Like how autonomous versus semi-autonomous does it need to be before you ship it out there to customers? Like, I just want to get an idea of your thinking there.
Yeah. So we have two agents. And so we have our autonomous security analyst, and the way that we think about how, like, what makes sense for an agent to solve and how we solve it. We were talking about this before we started on the show, was like what are the functions that humans do today that we think an agent could be effectively like trained or guided or given the right tools and knowledge to perform really, really well. So the first is our autonomous security analyst. Basically acts as a tier 1, tier 2 analyst to investigate, triage attacks in depth, and then take actions. And one of the really like valuable things that ASA has access to is the context of the environment, because it knows prior communication patterns, it knows what's normal, what's not. It also has a really deep knowledge base. So we have basically fed it our entire detection repository. We basically told it, this is how you build detections in Sublime. And we've also given it basically all of our like machine learning functions and enrichments. And so it can basically go and do these investigations. It can take actions like quarantine a message. It can reply to an end user and say, hey, thanks for reporting this. And so that's agent one. And I'll come back to how we think about efficacy and automation.
Well, and straight away, like you mentioned, that it can thank a recipient of a bad message. It can thank it for reporting it. So I can imagine that, like, if you set up a workflow, which is someone reports a message, then all of these things should happen, but there needs to be a little bit of investigation. And these things are usually either obviously really bad or not. So, like, I can understand how you would get an agent in place that would just handle that for you. Like, that makes sense to me, what you described. Yes.
Yes, 100%. And I think there are certain classes of problems in security that are actually like not solvable by agents today. Like we call this, I've been kind of on the road show giving this talk called like machine versus machine. And one of the things that I've been talking about is the security AI agent trilemma. So I have officially coined this term. So if you hear it around, you heard it here first. And it's basically this trilemma that there is a trade-off in terms of what you can actually, in terms of the constraints that you have with agents. So basically, like, if you, the trilemma involves basically speed, cost, and efficacy. So if you want something that is low latency.
Yeah, it's a pick 2 out of 3 sort of thing, right? Yeah.
It's pick 2 out of 3. Yeah, exactly. So like if you want it to be really fast and really cheap, then it's not going to be effective, basically. And so alert triage turns out to be one of those use cases that is actually really perfectly kind of fit for this, for using agents, because it doesn't have to be like real time. And when we're talking real time, we're talking like milliseconds. So you can take a little bit of time to do it. And the volume is like relatively low. When we talk about real-time detection systems, we're talking very high volume. We're talking like an email security system that's analyzing every message. There's millions and millions of messages. So you can't apply an agent to every one of those messages because it's going to be far too expensive or the latency is going to be too high. So alert triage, it's like relatively low volume. So it's just like it's like a great use case for that.
I remember a paper coming out, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago about a concept called near real-time detection. And the context was absolutely around like sandbox, blowing up attachments in sandboxes, right? And they called it near real-time detection because if you detect something a few seconds after it hits someone's inbox, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can just nuke, you can go and nuke that message, right? So I'm with you. And also alert triage. I mean, there's entire businesses that exist. And I know Ed Wu, over at Dropzone, right? And like that's all they do is like alert triage in a SIEM using agents because you're right, it works really well. Because it is that mind-numbing work
exactly
that people just don't want to do anymore. And this is going to keep coming up as a theme as well, right? Which is like you kind of have to think about these AI agents instead of thinking them about, computer science lecture building blocks. They're much more about like, you have to think of them as like kind of people with limited capacity, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think there's a couple key things when it comes to efficacy and evaluating efficacy. It's like if you try and solve every problem or every let's say every alert, let's just stick with the alert triage problem. If you try and have the agent basically like force a verdict and force a decision on every single one of those, you're going to get some misclassifications. And so one of the things when we're talking about efficacy in Sublime is that, specifically with our autonomous security analyst, is around transparency of the of verdicts and chain of thought, but also allowing you to passively basically see what it would have done. So instead of taking an action, you build confidence over time. And then I think the really key thing also is not just like just like an analyst in the SOC, like a tier 1, tier 2 analyst, where at the end of their investigation, if they don't know the answer, they are going to escalate that to tier 3, right? And so for ASA, if ASA isn't confident in its verdict, then it will actually render an unknown judgment. And so that is at the point where we want a human review. And obviously you can customize that too and say, hey, I don't want any, like in this unknown case, insert a warning banner instead and just like, mitigate some of that risk. But I think it's important to kind of understand what are the limitations and then be able to account for that in the decision-making process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, again, going back to Ed, right? Because he's very deep in this stuff. I did an interview much like this one, talking to him about these agents, and he said, you really just have to think about these agents as being really like 14-year-olds who are really eager to please, right? And they will lie to you if they think they're going to tell you something you want to hear because they haven't yet grasped that lying is bad,
Yeah, exactly. So this is so that's ASA. Now the agent that I'm really, really excited about is Ade, our autonomous detection engineer. And this is the first time that we are talking about this publicly. So hopefully my marketing team won't kill me for this, but we are starting to roll this out to our customers. And Ade will basically be able to take any sort of misclassification and tailor and autonomously build a fix for that misclassification within the context of our customer's environment. And you asked about like efficacy and kind of like how do we know if something is good? So one of the problems with agents is the lack of predictability in some cases, right? It's not, you can't guarantee certain outcomes. And so for us, we're able to combine Ade with our underlying detection language to make it predictable. And so when we're talking about tuning a misclassification, we first take an attack. Let's say there's a new technique. Your QR codes were big about a year ago. There's all kinds of like new techniques. Now SVG smuggling is big. And so the first thing we do is we give it to ASA actually. So we've got like a multi-agent system. These agents are communicating with one another. So ASA will actually produce a report initially and get its verdict and get its analysis and summary of what's suspicious about the message, pass that to Ade. And Ade basically has this knowledge base. It has access to the DSL, this really specialized toolkit. It will generate a new detection, and then it will backtest that detection across historical messages. So we've got a backtesting and retro hunting capability that you mentioned earlier. So it'll run that retroactively. And for every one of those results, we'll run those through ASA. So to assess, hey, are these false positives or are these actually attacks? And so it'll basically iterate on that detection and ultimately until it gets to a highly effective detection. And then it'll output that to like this final result along with full explainability on how it got there. And so then you can like accept the new detection after that.
So you can accept the new detection after that. I guess once it's already kind of run, it's showing you it's working, right? It shows you the output. So I think that's a little bit different because what a lot of people are doing right now, and this is still early days, right? But they're using an agent to generate some sort of detection as code, right? they crap that out into a window, and then people kind of have been reviewing it line by line, making sure that it works before they deploy it to prod. So this is a bit different, right? In that you're getting the whole thing has gone through. You're seeing what the output of it is,
Yes,
before you're actually choosing to approve it. So that should make it actually, from a workflow point of view, work pretty well. Do you have like beta users of this already, or?
Yeah, and this is how we get to fully autonomous, to be clear, because once you, like, if you're just generating a new detection and YOLOing it, right? Like you have to, you're not actually doing the work of a detection engineer. And so a detection engineer is going to validate the efficacy of a detection before they publish it. And so that's exactly what Ade is doing. And so what we're moving towards right now, we call it, semi-autonomous, because at the end of it, we still require human review to actually like accept, review the results and accept it and push it forward and then deploy it live. But once you can establish criteria, like efficacy criteria, after you've built confidence and say, hey, if this comes back and we ran it over 30 days of retro data and it flagged 10 messages and ASA said all 10 of those were an attack, then I want to automatically approve that rule to go live in my environment. And that's how we get to fully autonomous. And that's ultimately how I think we can solve this, like, we talked about how real-time classification at high volume is not a problem that can be solved directly by agents because the cost is too high because of that security trilemma. But in this architecture where you have the DSL at the core, and then you have this agent ecosystem, I think we're effectively doing that. So where we can basically autonomously improve over time.
Yeah. Now, this begs the question. Like, this sounds awesome, right? But like, where does it not help? Where do the human detection engineers who are working with Sublime? Because the whole point of your platform, right? The whole point of it is you can crack the hood, you can mess with it yourself, right? Like, that's the point of Sublime. But now it sounds like what you're building is like, it just goes full auto mode. Now, I get that there's a level of inspectability that is not there in other products. So that's really cool. But like, is it getting to the point now where the detection engineers won't really have to do anything except if something slips through?
Yeah.
Say some other control detects that an attachment got through to an endpoint or something, EDR flags it, and you're like, whoa, what, you're just going to go tell these agents, hey, you messed up, go fix, and it goes and fixes. Is that sort of the future there?
That is like the reality that we're living in now with Sublime, is that the threat hunting and the kind of more advanced use cases, that's like an on-demand functionality where you want to pop open the hood and you want to do something very specific, very bespoke. And, like maybe it's an IR use case or whatever it might be, or maybe Ade failed to generate an effective rule. That is one thing that it's not going to go on forever, right? Like there is some sort of feedback and validation where at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, then we're not going to push it live. Right. And so we're now working with customers who are never touching any more advanced functionality of Sublime, right? They're just deploying it. It's largely set and forget, and it just works really, really well.
But because you built this with the scripting language to begin with, it's given the agents something to use, right? Because it's like,
exactly.
you actually built something with an architecture that was well suited to have AI bolted onto it in the end. So I mean, you kind of pulled a homer on this one, right?
It works really well because like we get to do everything. We get to work with, we're working with one university who is 100,000 mailboxes, one person IT and security team, right? They never look at Sublime ever. It's full autopilot. And then on the other hand, we're working with like some really sophisticated organizations like Netflix and Spotify who are in the weeds building detections or doing threat hunting. And so these days there's Sublime works for all of these types of companies really, really well.
You just mentioned, okay, they're doing this really sophisticated stuff around threat hunting. I mean, you and I both know Damien, right? Building a company called Nebulock, which is, and I can talk about it because, like, at the time of recording, they're stealth, but they've announced that they're going live next week, which is, and I know you know them, so it's fine. We can talk about it. So by the time this goes live, they will have announced, but they're doing like automated threat hunting, right? So at what point does their agent like ring up your agent? Yo, hey, incident responder slash threat hunter here. I need some data. Can you help me? Right?
Yeah. These are, so we've actually been thinking about this, like agent to agent architecture. So Sublime is basically like a multi-agent architecture where we have got many of our own agents. Our agents can spawn other agents. They can work together. And then the next evolution of where I think we are going as an industry is you're going to have agents of other companies talking to other agents. So Sublime's agent, ASA or ADE, or maybe our incident response agent or whatever is going to need more information. Did this execute on the endpoint? Okay, let's go talk to the Nebulock agent.
Let's go talk to Mr. CrowdStrike agent, or exactly. Crazy.
So that's where we're headed. 100%. That's where we're headed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the question is, at what point do we develop some sort of standardized method for these agents to exchange information, right? Because they could just do it by talking to each other, but it's not exactly computationally efficient, right? And do we develop that method of interchange, or do we let them work it out? Because they probably can.
Yeah, I mean, there's MCP now, but for many of these use cases, the APIs are well documented, and the data is like pretty kind of like, it's not that crazy where you can just give it the data, and you can just give it the data model or the schema of how to make an API call, and it can just figure that out. So I'm sure we'll see more adoption of like standards.
Oh, you want some data, do you? Here's my schema. Go have at it, right? I guess it's like that, right? Oh, do you need help using my API?
That's right. A little clippy for AI agents. That's what we need.
Yeah, it looks like you're trying to query a database.
That's right. It looks like you're doing incident response. Do you need to query a hash?
But I mean, just look, something interesting has popped up here, right? Which is that any sort of agentic anything worth its salt is multi-agent now, right? Like the idea that you're just going to do like one agent, and I think that's why people are skeptical still about some of this stuff, is because if you go and start messing around with like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, like it's a frustrating experience because you're dealing with these single models that are trying to be all things to all people, and they're bad. Like, let's just say, like as a replacement, they're frustrating to use. But I think when you're talking about like specific models that are designed to only be given bite-sized tasks that they can actually chew, that's when it starts getting genuinely useful, right? But you have to scope it properly, and part of scoping it properly is using a bunch of models together, and each one of those models knows what its job is, and its job is small.
Yes. So this is a really important point, especially for anyone who's like thinking about doing this, right? Is that these models, like a better model, like a model that quote unquote performs better generically, will perform worse at a specific task than a lesser model that's given the right context, tools, and knowledge. And that's something that like we have and that's why ASA works so well, is that the extent of the contextual information it has in the environment, the tooling that's available to it with our DSL, the knowledge base that we provide it. We are literally, I mean, we have so much knowledge that we are basically, as part of like, like the context window and the prompt that we give it, there's so much deep knowledge and domain expertise. And so if you like, those are the things that are super key to making them really effective.
What you're describing, right, in terms of what Sublime is now, and it's interesting, right, because I'd imagine that there's a lot of these other large email security providers who, like, they just can't do this, right, because they don't have the DSL, they don't have the site-specific context, right?
Yes, it requires like it's like a next generation of architectures I think that this is. I think that this is like the architecture of the future for real-time detection systems at large, like not just for email security.
Yeah.
I think that this is like the future of real-time detection and prevention. Yeah.
Yeah, but the way you've laid it all out, I mean, it really does sound, and full disclaimer here, right? Like, I'm an advisor to Sublime, so they do well, I do well. But it does pretty much sound like the way you're describing it, like it is kind of the holy grail, right? Of like a system like this. Like, what more can you do here to like make it better and like easier to use and more effective? Like, I'm sure in 5-10 years someone will think of something, but like right now, like it's, you know, at what point are you just like, I'm done. I'm done.
Peace out. I'm out.
I'm gonna resign. Like, but like, where do you go from here? Okay, so there's a question. Where do you go from here with it? Right now that you've nailed down this sort of agentic stuff, and it's like a self-sourcing pudding.
Yeah, well, the way that we think about this, I mean, there's plenty of things that we're thinking about, but just in the agentic space, like we're just getting started. Even within like, even for our customers today. So the way that we think about it are like, what are the things that humans do on teams today? And so there's, hey, we review alerts, like we review user reports, we tune detections, we threat hunt, we do IR. And so the way that we're thinking about it is, what are these like different things that humans are doing today, and how can we take that workload off of them and augment them? So we want them focused on the high leverage things. We don't want them doing the menial things like that. That should just be automated away. And we want them focusing on the most high leverage stuff.
But I mean, it sounds like you're there already with most of it. Like, what's left to automate away?
I don't want to give too much away, but there's things like, you know, there's like there's like a bunch of things that you do in like IR, you know, like you want to maybe correlate campaigns, and you want to, you know, we do a bunch of that already today. But
so is this for customers to do, or is this for you to do back at Sublime HQ to get yourself like that God view of like malicious actors?
Like within a customer's environment.
Okay, just within their environment. So you're not sitting back like pulling in some metadata across all customers and, you know.
Well, we do federated threat intelligence too, but what I'm talking about, like, I think that's ripe for automation too in agentic use cases, but there's also like at the per customer environment level, when you receive a campaign, if like large campaigns might hit, you know, for a really large organization, it might hit 1,000 people, 10,000 people. And so now what we're seeing is more and more diversity in those campaigns. And so with Sublime today, like we have a fuzzy grouping technology, like we have fuzzy grouping under the hood where we do our best to correlate similar messages in a campaign together so that, you know, it's one click to remediate, or it's automatically remediating all of them at once. But as we see more and more diverse campaigns, that fuzzy grouping problem may get harder. And so from an IR perspective, you want to go and you want to understand the full impact of a campaign. What other users receive this? And so today, you might be doing some manual operations via your SOAR to, like, you know, search for a wild card in the subject, and you're all of these techniques to find similar messages. Well, that's something that could potentially be automated.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So it's like, it is that sort of threat hunt use case where you've got another agent that is just, it might get a tip from yet another agent.
Right.
Like, this is a bad message. Go and investigate. See if there's anything else that could possibly be clustered with this. Like, I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I'm not saying that that's the next thing coming. Like that's where we're even doing that. It's just like this is how we're thinking about it. That there's a bunch of just like manual things that people do today. How can we augment them? How can we let these agents work together more efficiently and to solve these problems for our customers?
Now, before we wrap it up, I got to ask, what is the most spectacular, like, agentic fail you've seen developing this stuff, where it just went absolutely haywire and did something insane in a dev environment? What's the best one? I can see from your smile, there's like many cases, but like, what's a good one?
RM-RF on the prod database. No, I'm just kidding. Did you see that Twitter thread recently on this? I think it was like Replit agent went rogue and like completely wiped some dude's like entire prod database, and he was just like just developing, and it just went off and just like wiped all of prod. It's like, holy dude.
I don't know. It's hard to know if those stories are real or if it's just like social media.
This one was very real.
Oh
yeah,
dear,
yeah.
Man, you don't need that. But I mean, so maybe not RMRF, but was there anything, anything you could think of where it just, I mean, I'm guessing most of the time it's just like, oh, well, that didn't work really well or that classification was wrong. But can you think of any like funny ones? I'm mining for comedy here.
Yeah, like there hasn't been anything to that degree, like, because the way that we, like, these are very constrained problems. Like, we don't have agents going off and like going into these other systems doing crazy. It's like very much a constrained problem where you have an output, you're rendering a verdict, you're rendering a judgment, you're building a detection, you're threat hunting. It's kind of very constrained problem. So we haven't had anything crazy like that.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame. I expect to be the first to know should that happen.
I will let you know for sure.
All right, Josh Kamju, thank you so much for joining us for that discussion. Very interesting stuff. Yeah, it's cool. It's just cool. This stuff is like, I'm a believer, right? As much as it annoys me to say it, I'm a believer.
I never thought, like as I'm a security guy to my core, and I would have been a skeptic like a couple of years ago, but I am a believer now. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not a believer in the whole like, these generic agents. I mean, I think they're an efficiency tool. I stand by my initial take, which is that they're an efficiency tool. I think the generic agents are only ever going to get so good, but. Yeah, I mean, I caught up with a friend in Melbourne a few weeks ago who's like one of those people who loves to poop on new tech. And I hadn't seen him in years. And I'm like, hey, what have you been up to? He said, man, I've been playing around heaps with AI and it's amazing. And like seeing this guy like Captain Cynical.
Really sick.
Yeah,
it really is.
He's like the grumpy cat of Australian InfoSec, and seeing him sitting there just like raving about like all of the cool stuff he's been doing with AI. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Josh Kamju, great to see you as always, my friend. And I'll look forward to chatting to you again soon.
Thanks, Pat. Me too, man.